If you've been following along on the Revelation Bible study, you know that we got to chapter 7, talked about the rapture a little bit, and we were talking about the 7 seals that we read about in Revelation 6. And the 7 seals, I talked about them in the previous message, but you got the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the famous horsemen of the apocalypse, right? And then the 5th seal, it says, when he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who have been slain for the word of God. And they cried out to God, saying, vindicate us, God. And God gives them the white robe. And then I relate that to something in the next chapter, chapter 7, about the white robes in my last podcast. But in chapter 8, we get to the 7th seal, chapter 8, Revelation chapter 8. When the Lamb opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. So, there's a lot to take in right here in Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. So what does this mean? What does it mean that, the Lamb opened up the 7th seal and there was silence in heaven for half an hour? Well, first we can say that what happens in the spiritual realm is going to happen in the physical realm. So anytime you see something happening spiritually, there's something happening physically, or anything that's happening physically, there's something in the spiritual realm happening. We see this in the book of Daniel, in the book of Ezekiel. There's one weird phrase of a angel that said, the prince of Persia was fighting me. And so that's why it took me a while to get to you, to give you this message from God. So there's stuff going on in the spiritual realms that we don't know about. And right here, it's the same way. When the Lamb opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for half an hour. This silence in heaven for half an hour part is reflective of the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. So if you've been around the church for a while, there's this thing called the Great Tribulation that many scholars would say is 7 years long. I would say it's 3.5 years. Many scholars say it's 7 years long. It's a 7-year tribulation. And they get it from the book of Daniel. So the way it works, right? Some people say the rapture happens before the tribulation. Some people say it happens at the end. Others claim it happens in the middle of the tribulation. Let's not talk about the rapture. Let's talk about the tribulation. What is the tribulation? So, according to Daniel, God told Daniel that there would be a peace agreement. There will be a peace agreement in the Middle East for 7 years. But the peace agreement is broken in the middle of the 7 years. And so this is what this is talking about. The Lamb opened the 7th seal and there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. This is talking about the peace agreement. Revelation 8:1. When Jesus opens up the 7th seal, the tribulation will begin. Now, if you read, say you go and you read about the 1st seal and the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th seal, you would think that the tribulation has already started, or that the second half of the tribulation has begun. But it's exactly the opposite. So the tribulation period, this time of peace, is going to begin after a great time of war, a great time of economic struggle and downfall. There's going to be great pain and sorrow take place all over the world. A lot of people are going to die before the tribulation begins. And so, Revelation 8:1, when the Lamb is Jesus, when the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. This phrase, half an hour, a lot of times when you read Bible prophecy and it's talking about the tribulation, the idea of an hour, it's reflected. There's a word in the Greek. In the Greek there's all these different words, and they all have like a different meaning. Like love, there's godly love, there's sexual love, there's romantic love, there's friendly love, there's friendship love, there's I love ice cream kind of love. Well, the word hour is hora or horas and horon in the Greek, right? A lot of times when you read and it's talking about the tribulation, it's talking about an hour, it's talking about a season. So there's a Greek word for hora that is reflective of a seasonal event. So if we go back to, say, Matthew 24, when Jesus says, no one knows the day or the hour, that word for hour is reflective of a seasonal event. So it's not talking about the second coming of Jesus. It was actually talking about the tribulation, that no one knows when the tribulation will begin. No one knows when the day will happen. The day was talking about the day of abomination. So what is the day of abomination? The day of abomination is the exact reason why there is silence for half an hour. See, there's a 7-year peace agreement. So you would think that there would be silence for 1 hour, but instead it's only for half of an hour. It's because in the middle of the tribulation period, the abomination that causes desolation will happen. This is an event that the Antichrist will walk into the third temple, and he will have a pig or some unclean animal and sacrifice the unclean animal on the altar. It's an abomination to the Jewish people, to the Jewish God, to the Hebrew God. There is only one God. There is only one way to heaven. But the Antichrist will say no. There's multiple ways to heaven. You can't be inclusive and only say your way is right. The Antichrist is going to say, no, you have to be exclusive. You have to include all these people who disagree with you and say that all roads lead to heaven. Well, guess what? All roads, they may lead to Rome, but they don't lead to heaven. Jesus is the only way to heaven. Yahweh is the one true God. Yeshua is the one true God. There is no other God. There is no other way. It's Jesus alone. And so Antichrist will walk into the third temple on the day of abomination. And we read about this in Matthew 24. We read about this in Daniel. That on the day of abomination, the Antichrist will walk into the temple and sacrifice an unclean animal on the altar. See, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to only sacrifice clean animals on the altar. And that will happen for the first 3.5 years. But the moment Antichrist says no, all roads must lead to heaven, that's when the day of abomination happens. That's when a war breaks out. A war so bad the entire world will gather against Israel and fight to destroy Israel and wipe Israel off the map. But there's good news. Our God is victorious. Our God will win the war. Our God will come, and Israel will be saved. I'm not saying that every single Jew will be saved. The Bible promises Israel will be saved. 144,000 Jews that we read about in Revelation 7. 144,000 sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. See, the Jehovah's Witnesses say, oh, this is the church. No, this is not the church. This is the Jewish people. The church is the very next people, the countless multitude of people that no one could count. That is the church. So back to Revelation chapter 8. When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And then I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer, and he was given much incense to offer with the prayers of the saints on the golden altar before throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints rose before God from the hands of the angels. Then the angels took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and threw it on the earth. And there was peals of thunder, rumbling, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. This is the judgment of God upon mankind for rebelling against God and for rejecting Him. This is the judgment of God. And I want you to notice, what does God use to judge those who have rejected Him? He uses the prayers of all the saints. You may wonder, like, hey, I've been praying and praying, and does God even care? Well, He cares enough that He's going to take your prayers and He's going to bring judgment against your enemies. And that could be right now in your lifetime, or it can be right here in this lifetime when this event happens. But I find it so interesting. God could have brought judgment on the people who have rejected Him in any way He wanted. And He chose to use the prayers of the saints to do it. In the next podcast, we're going to talk about the 7 trumpets. And these 7 trumpets, according to this, it happens after the day of abomination takes place. So I hope I see you on the next podcast. And I hope I see you on the other side of eternity, praising Jesus and serving Him day and night. God bless you.